I'm horror author Paul Edwards. Today I'm reading Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, issue number 43 from 1967. I thought some of you might enjoy flipping through this vintage magazine with me. Together, let's see what kinds of monster kid goodness is in here. This cover of Famous Monsters of Filmland shows the great Christopher Lee playing Count Dracula rising out of his crypt. That's a great picture. Of course, Christopher Lee, at the time this came out in 1967, he was right in the heart of starring in a whole series of Dracula movies for Hammer Studios. Oh my gosh. All right, what are we going to get this issue? Dracula Flies Again. Fantastic Voyage. I know that the editor-in-chief here, Forrest J. Ackerman, loved the movie Fantastic Voyage. One year for his birthday, he rented out a movie theater and screened Fantastic Voyage for all of his friends. That was his idea of a party. Headlines from Horrorsville. In the days of the dinosaurs, the scream test, House of Dracula. Well, I have a couple of remarks to make about House of Dracula. The men behind the monsters, Journey to the Seventh Planet. All right, this is going to be good. Let's get going. Dracula Flies Again. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's a good shot of Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. This is a famous promotional picture from Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes they would print the picture like this, so it looked like the Wolfman was winning. And then they would usually print it this way. This is the way it was actually taken, where it looks like the Frankenstein monster's in the lead. So, Son of Dracula was an okay movie, except for the fact that they miscast Lon Chaney Jr. as Count Dracula. He had no business playing an elegant, refined character. That was not his vibe. He made more sense as an everyman, a sort of a likable everyman. Like Lawrence Talbot was a perfect role for him. Think of Mice and Men. I mean, he was perfect in, plain folk roles, not European aristocracy roles. Oops. This is from 1 million BC. That's the 1940s one that was later remade as 1 million years BC. Lionel Atwill and Lon Chaney Jr. in Man-Made Monster. Oh, there's Lon Chaney Jr. signing autographs. That's cool. Isn't it a little early in the issue to be running the ads? Okay. A personal favorite of Forrest J. Ackerman's, Fantastic Voyage. If you're not familiar with this movie, this important diplomat needs a life-saving operation that can only be done by shrinking down a crew of scientists and technicians onto a submarine and shrinking them down to microscopic size and injecting them into the diplomat's body in the hopes of performing an operation from the inside. I like the mummy mask. I'm not crazy about this Drac mask, to be honest with you. But I like the mummy mask. Uh-oh. A previous owner of this magazine filled out the coupon. I won't show the address, but not that I think he's there anymore. But I have magazines that are like that, where I went to the trouble to fill out the coupon and then never actually clipped it out and sent it in. So the animal world is sort of a bland title for what they're talking about here. One of Ray Harryhausen, master of stop motion animation, one of his films was the animal world. And there was a big part of it that had life in the dinosaur age. But instead of calling it life in the dinosaur age or something, they just called it the animal world. And I think it passed by a lot of people who otherwise might have been interested in it. It's interesting to see in older dinosaur movies the way that they thought certain dinosaurs behaved. Like a really good example is in King Kong. There's a brontosaurus that they encounter in the swamp, and the brontosaurus is eating people. Well, you know, a brontosaurus is a plant eater. Any 5-year-old reasonably conversant in dinosaurs could tell you that. But at the time the movie was made, that wasn't known. Also, a lot of these have a Tyrannosaurus walking completely upright, the way that a man would walk. Where nowadays scientists think that they walked leaning way forward, like they have it in the Jurassic Park movies. That's how they'll show a Tyrannosaurus. If you watch an older thing, even like Land of the Lost in the 1970s, the Tyrannosaurs are always standing completely upright. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Oh. Oh, this is Willis O'Brien. Willis O'Brien was sort of the father of stop motion animation, and he taught Ray Harryhausen. Willis O'Brien is probably best remembered for having brought King Kong to life in 1933. Send away and get your home movie versions on reels of film of your favorite spook shows. Don't have a projector? That's okay, they'll sell you the projector. You still need a screen. You're not selling a screen. Yeah, these are quizzes. Like, do you recognize what this is from? Is it Invasion of the Animal People, Snow Creature, or Half Human? What about this one? This one I do recognize. This is from The Black Castle. Oh my gosh. This is sort of, I'm not sure if you'd count this as cheating or not. So here's the question for this one. Is this from Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm, Dragonwyck, or Goliath and the Dragon? Well, I do know the answer to this. The answer is Goliath and the Dragon. But I don't know it because I remember the movie so well. I know it because they just happen to have printed another picture of this monster in another horror magazine that I just did a video on a few days ago. So that's where I know it from. Not even from seeing the movie, but from seeing it in another magazine. So I guess that's not cheating. I guess that counts. See, this channel is educational. You learn. I learn. No matter how much you know about old horror movies, there's always more to learn because there's so many of them. Ah, this is a tougher one. Giant insect, sure, but which is it? Is it Monster from Green Hell, The Deadly Mantis, or Beginning of the End? This one I actually do know on my own. That's Monster from Green Hell. Deadly Mantis, of course, was a praying mantis beginning of the end was giant grasshoppers. Okay, so Universal Studios had a lot of success with their monster movie series, especially the Frankenstein series. They did 4 Frankenstein movies. Then they had the smart idea, why don't we put 2 monsters together in one movie and it'll be twice as good. And they put Frankenstein and the Wolfman together for a big fight in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and it was great. It was great. But then they started getting carried away. The next Universal film was House of Frankenstein, in which they had, quote unquote, 5 monsters: Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman, the Mad Doctor, and the Hunchback, which was not Quasimodo, just a person who happened to have a deformity. And so they got to put on the poster 5 monsters. And it worked. It got people into the theater. So then a year later, they did it again, House of Dracula. And again, they said, you get 5 monsters. You get the Frankenstein monster, you get Count Dracula, you get the Wolfman, you get the Mad Doctor, different Mad Doctor, and you get a hunchback. Here is the quote-unquote hunchback, this poor young woman. So I'm not crazy about the fact that they did that, as if to trick possible audience members into thinking they were getting the Hunchback of Notre Dame in here, which they weren't. But anyway, this is a bit better than House of Frankenstein. House of Frankenstein was a disjointed mess. Dracula comes into the story, does his whole bit, and then is killed off and is done for the movie before they even get to the Wolfman and the Frankenstein monster. So it's almost more of an anthology movie. It's not what you think. It's not all the monsters chasing each other around one big castle. It's an example of the idea and the posters and artwork being better than the actual movie. House of Dracula, also the artwork is better than the actual movie, but parts of this are actually okay. Basically, a doctor thinks he's going to, quote unquote, cure all of the monsters. He thinks he's going to cure Dracula of his vampirism, cure Lawrence Talbot of werewolfism, and he's going to revive the Frankenstein monster. Well, you can imagine about how well this goes. In the course of the movie, and this is not much of a spoiler, this is part of the whole setup. In the course of the movie, the scientist himself gets infected with Dracula's blood and becomes a vampire. And he goes on his own killing spree. And it's basically a sort of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story as far as his story arc goes. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That, honestly, is the best part of the movie. It really is. Onslow Stevens does a great job playing both the Jekyll and the Hyde half of his character. So is it worth seeing? Sure. But it's not the kind of movie that, you think you're going to get. You think you're going to get the monsters all, like I say, running around the same castle, jumping out at you. It's not like that. They make it sound like a house of horrors. It's not really. The Caped Crusader. Because, this was the 1960s. The Adam West Batman was on TV. They called him the Caped Crusader. This is a publicity picture. This didn't actually happen in the movie, but it is a really good picture, though. One thing that gets me in these, when John Carradine played Dracula, is they did this a couple of times. They would show he was in bat form, and he would fly into a room or something, or down the hall, and they would show the shadow of the bat, and it should be really creepy. And then the shadow takes the form of a human being, and now it's the shadow of Count Dracula. Well, think about that. The shadow of Count Dracula? I thought vampires didn't cast a shadow. Any child of the 1940s monster era could have told you that. Another publicity image. This actually did happen in the movie. Look at the detail Jack Pierce put into this makeup work. Just great. Well, they're sure going all out with House of Dracula. We're getting a big spread on it here. I like when the scientist is getting vamped out and his evil personality is starting to fantasize about his plots, what he might do. He starts fantasizing that he's going to unleash the Frankenstein monster on the world. And they show scenes that they filmed specifically for this movie. But then they also cut back to earlier movies where Boris Karloff was still playing the Frankenstein monster. And, you know, his face looks completely different from Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster. You can easily see where the older footage is used. That's a great picture. This and this were publicity pictures, not actual shots from the movie. You ever wonder why the villagers in Transylvania don't just move? I mean, you know, it's like asking why people don't move out of Tokyo because Godzilla keeps trampling it. You'd think eventually people would just leave. But Tokyo is the biggest city in the world. It's got, I don't know, 30 million people or something. You couldn't evacuate it. A village in Transylvania, you could evacuate. Now, why did this doctor, who never intended to do any Frankenstein-like experiments, why did he have in his laboratory one of these big slabs with the straps on it? It's not like he was buying monster-making equipment, getting ready to make a monster. He just found the Frankenstein monster. Why did he have the slab already? These are good. This is a really long article for Famous Monsters of Filmland. Yeah. The Frankenstein monster's role in this movie is really minimal. At least Dracula has a story arc, and the Wolfman has a story arc. The Frankenstein monster is just, you know, it's like a cameo. He does a couple of cameo appearances, basically. Now, here's a question. If you remember Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, the Frankenstein monster liked Lawrence Talbot. He didn't like the Wolfman, but he liked Lawrence Talbot when he was in human form, and he listened to Lawrence Talbot. Why is he now hostile toward Lawrence Talbot? These are the sons of a friend of Glenn Strange who had come to visit the set. You got to see him. Imagine being a kid and chilling out with the Frankenstein monster. And the older kid is laughing, like, isn't this cool? And the younger kid is like, Obviously, this is a joke picture taken behind the scenes. Lon Chaney helping Glenn Strange into his costume. Didn't they have makeup artists for that? The real actor, Onslow Stevens, and his stand-in. Here's how you had to get a drink when you were dressed up as the Wolfman. Oh, and that's his stand-in. Of course, it's the 1960s. You gotta have Batman stuff. Whoa. Oh, you can get a human skeleton. Try explaining that to mom and dad. You asked for it. Oh, the man they could not hang. Remember that one? This is an artist rendition of the time machine, and then how the actual creatures came out, the Morlocks came out. The Neanderthal man. Ooh, make your own monster photo cards. Journey to the Seventh Planet is like, it's like the episode of the original Star Trek TV series where they go to the planet and whatever they think about comes true. I will give them credit, though, for going to the planet Uranus instead of going to Mars, Venus, or the Moon for the umpteenth time. At least they went to a different planet. Check out this dude. Yikes. Oh, and we're out. All right, that was a pretty good issue. Great spread on House of Dracula. If you do like House of Dracula, this is the issue for you. That was a really extensive article on it. Listen, if you enjoy classic monsters and vintage horror, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. My novels recapture the vibe and feel of 20th century B movies and horror movies especially. I have a series of novels that take place in a haunted forest, and in each novel there's a different threat. I have a giant spider one, a swamp monster one, and so forth. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books, available on Amazon. Thanks for spending some time looking through this issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland with me. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.